scheduled committee meeting for the village of Midlothian, Wednesday, June 5th, 2019 at 7 p.m. Roll call, please.
Trustee Baby?
Here.
Trustee Carly?
Here.
Trustee Gillis?
Here.
Trustee Hyman?
Here.
Trustee Tilley?
Here.
Trustee Kreis?
Here.
Mayor LaRue?
Here,
You have the quorum.
please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we'll open the floor to public comment. If you would like to be named a matter of public record, please stand, state your name, and Helen would request that you use the microphone so he can hear you. Should anyone like to say?
Those who are not familiar with the microphone, it's long, dark, clear.
Seeing as there's no comment from the public, I'll close the floor to public comment and move on to discussing business. Trustee Chris.
Just a couple of updates. If we can get our volunteers here, we may have two or three presentations next week. One for the Veterans Committee volunteer, we're going to try again. And we may have some for KM, for Keep It Healthy and Beautiful. I will let you all know, okay? The other item, the village is going to be hosting the chamber luncheon at the Rainready Community Garden next Thursday, 13, weather permitting. Unfortunately, that garden, that area has not been tended to. Recall, we had three pretty much full-time volunteers, Colin, Jackie, Phil, and Chris Parker taking care of it, and it really has received very little attention this year because Colin's dad, because of his being ill for so long and then his death. Chris and Helen and I were out there Monday morning. We were starting to pull weeds in the rain.
I thought we hired somebody, I'm sorry, I apologize. I thought we hired somebody to do the weeds and stuff.
We hired Andy Marlin sprayed the lawn and the islands today, but there is a lot of work that needs to be done to get it in shape before next Thursday. There's weeds that need to be pulled, the whole perimeter of the rain garden. It needs to be hand weeded. Hopefully now that those areas, some of the areas were sprayed today, we can rake some of that out. It's going to all have to be collected, and Joe is going to Mulch Mountain to get the free mulch. So my plea is to get this place in shape for next Thursday, because it needs a lot of tender loving care. We're asking whoever can come out, please come out Sunday, starting at 3, probably for 2 hours. And Tuesday evening, starting at 4. We're going to, that whole rain garden's got to be weeded around the perimeter. The dead weeds are going to have to be pulled, and we're going to move a whole lot of mulch into the areas that need to be mulched.
Sunday at 3 and Tuesday at
4. We can't do it Monday because I think the tax seminar is Monday, right?
7.
Yeah, so, and if, this is again weather permitting, and if something changes, I'll let everybody know. But unfortunately, we haven't had our small volunteer base out there doing all the work, so it does need attention. We were pulling weeds in the rain Monday morning.
Is the intention to put mulch around the perimeter of the rain garden again?
I believe so, once it's weeded, and those, the islands are gonna have to be remulched, and there's all, over in the VIP section, there's all kinds of weeds coming up. Now, hopefully that was sprayed today, but it's all gotta be remulched. And that is all I have.
Trustee Ida.
Thank you, Mayor. I have before us the ordinance 2028 with update certain portions of the 2018 tax levy, in particular the Jawa that the county started to build. Okay, I guess for lack of a better description. So this ordinance is to abate the Jawa by removing it from the ordinance. Does anybody have any questions about that?
The only question I have, I have an email from your attorney email is that said that the latest anything could be filed with the county was June 1st.
We have an extension. We talked to the county about that.
Okay, so we are good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was, and I believe that was in the email.
Yes, it wasn't.
They got an extension.
Adam, I found this by looking at the levy that it recorded, and it did not match
It did not
what we
match,
submitted,
okay.
so, they're quite antsy, they in fact wanted us to prove it today online, and I said, no, not until after this meeting, so.
So I'd like to make,
Good about it.
if anybody else doesn't have any other questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2028 to abate certain portions of the 2018 tax levy.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Ivan,
Aye.
trustee King,
Aye.
trustee Crowley,
Aye.
trustee Gillis,
Aye.
trustee Killelea,
Aye.
trustee Price.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I want to thank the beautification committee for their commitment to the new flower boxes that we have sprinkled throughout the downtown area. We've gotten up to 34 from a beautification committee guy version of it. I really like that we went to 34. From the finance guy, we only budgeted 25. So committee will have to come up with the shortfall funds by hopefully our garden one, which is the second Sunday in July, from 10 to 2. And hopefully we'll make enough money to pay for the additional boxes that we have built and filled with dirt and flowers.
And how many new boxes did you get this year?
I believe it was, well, we budgeted for 25 and we went to 34, so.
But I mean, I think this year, if I'm not mistaken, Gene said we had like 12 or 13, maybe 12.
I thought it was maybe 11, I didn't want to misquote.
Okay. It was a lot.
Got more than that, that's Gene.
Oh,
Okay,
Gene, how many did
right
we get?
here, I can answer.
I didn't see.
Okay,
Let the record
actually,
reflect that Gene Barticki's,
I'm here. We have 31 that are out in the village, not 34. 2 of them are over by Right Way and Welsh Plumbing has theirs, and who knows what they did with that. This year we have a 15
Oh,
box.
15 new ones. 15 new
Boxes.
ones.
Does that include the 3 in your garage?
Pardon?
Does that include the 3 in your garage in
Yes.
the building right now?
Yes. And we had, last year we had 11 boxes, like I said, 2 of them were at Right Way and 1 went to Welsh. So that was 8 that were placed around the village.
And trustee Ivan, I must offer you a little bit of an apology. I was very skeptical that 9 plants were going to look enough to fill that big old box. But after the monsoon rains we've had for the last 2 weeks, last Friday I was driving around the neighborhood and all the boxes look pretty nice. They really are filling in and
Yeah, we haven't applied our secret ingredient yet either to them to expand the flowers, which is basically fertilized water. That's the next step in their growth cycle.
they look good.
Thank you. I believe that covers everything I wanted to cover.
I love it when you talk about plant growth cycle.
At least I didn't say microplant. Each box is a microplant.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Gillis.
Yes, I will have the fire department mileage report on my desk for the month of May. Anybody would like to see it, if you would like a copy, I can send it to you, the 11 vehicles. Also, Chief Wagner has informed me that he has a candidate for one of the part-time firefighter paramedic positions. He'd like approval to hire this person. He has passed all the needed background checks. So that will be up for approval for next week. Also, Chief Wagner brought it to my attention that we currently do not have a secretary for the Fire and Police Commission. We still need to test for engineer and lieutenant's position, which we haven't done. This was supposed to take place as soon as the structured rank agreement was finalized, and with no secretary, they cannot move on this. Also, during the department head meeting, I was told there was a discussion of the possibility of a police clerk filling this position.
That's who has filled it. The police, the woman in the police department is the one that we hired a year ago to do the police and fire commission as part of the responsibilities.
Okay,
And she's the one who's no longer here.
so we haven't,
We've put out the bids, we did that. We approved it a month ago. Half ago, Delaney has all the applications, we're starting.
okay, because our firefighter paramedic eligibility list expires June 16th. We need to get a list going for that. We have discussions on possibly looking to use a part-time budget to hire 3 full-time, but if we don't have a list, that's not going to happen for quite a while.
As soon as we get, I know that Julie is one, I think, who trains them. So as soon as we're able to get through the hiring process, and have the interviews done, we'll have that person on board so we can start training.
Okay.
Okay.
We do have a link.
We have a stack of resumes.
Okay, so we do have quite a bit that the Fire and Police Commission are going to have to work on as soon as that secretary gets in place, so just to let the board know, and that's all I have.
Mayor, if I could have the board's indulgence, I did forget one item.
Trustee Cavney, will you,
That's- I will relinquish time to
Please,
trustee
pass
Eisen.
them down and keep one for yourself. As I mentioned last week, the post office somehow misplaced a bunch of our vehicle sticker mailings.
Right.
These are 2 options that are on this list. If you could review them later today or tomorrow and get back to Maggie on how you guys would like to go forward to help rectify the situation, or at least advertise that we do have a situation that the mailing did not go out to every resident as it was originally paid for. We are pursuing every avenue with the United States Postal Service to see if we can get at least a refund, because we did mail it first class.
Yeah.
So and that's usually I believe a 3-day window on when they're supposed to mail it. All right? Thank you very much.
Trustee Cavney?
Thank you, Mayor. First item for discussion is to discuss and approve that we waive the bid requirement for the demolition project costing less than $20,000 for the unsafe structure at 14379 Waverly. Superintendent Weinert has advised me that Superintendent Sperry provided him with a list of demolition contractors that Public Works has used in the past, and he is starting to call those folks to get actual quotes, but he is confident that it would be under $20,000. So in the, for expediency's sake, to try to get this building demolished and in as safe as condition as possible, I would ask the board to approve to waive the bid requirement for the demo project, since it'll be less than $20,000.
Is this the house that we've talked about before?
Yes, the house, the garage that collapsed, exactly. Currently, the property has been fenced, but because part of the building is still leaning over, and if it goes over, it would go into the neighbor's yard. The neighbor allowed the village to put the fencing, to move the fencing, it's encroaching in the neighbor's yard, because they have kids. And so we've got part of the fence in their yard to keep their children safe. So we would like to try to,
Was that a motion?
no, I'm just asking the board, I don't know if anybody has any questions or would like to discuss it at all before I bring up the motion.
Pursuant to the municipal code, both the state and village, because the project is less than $20,000, the board does not have to waive the requirement, because the requirement doesn't apply for this.
Oh, so we can just move forward?
Right.
Okay, then I will advise the board. I am hereby advising the board that Superintendent Weinert has a list of demolition companies that have been used by Public Works, and he is contacting them to secure the best bid possible, and he will be moving forward to have that property demolished. And as soon as we have a bid and we know who the company is going to be, I will be notifying you.
The Superintendent Weiner believes the cost will be $11,000 to $13,000, and we will be leaning the property to recoup that cost, and it may end up in judicial deed.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's where we're headed.
Okay, very good. Next item, I apologize, there's an error on item number 2. It should not be approval of the non-union benefits, it should be for discussion. I was in Wisconsin over the weekend and was not able to get my phone to work properly, so I couldn't edit some of my agenda items properly. So I do apologize for that. And I will be working to improve my technology, use of technology, hopefully. So I wanted to bring up for final discussion the non-union insurance benefits policy. After many discussions of back and forth, if you recall, back in the beginning of May, I brought up a policy for board approval, and the motion failed. Part of the reasoning was, apparently there was a miscommunication or a misunderstanding on my part as to the retiree benefits for current employees. I thought the agreement was to not eliminate retiree benefits for current employees, but to eliminate the village 80-20 split on payment of the Medicare supplement, and that was incorrect. Trustee Crowley, after last week's meeting, Trustee Kreis had found the email she had been trying to send me about that. So I went ahead and I added that language back into paragraph 6. And then I had asked everyone for comments. Trustee Crowley had sent us all an email on Sunday suggesting that we include language in the policy with regards to qualified employees who transition from union to non-union positions. So based on Trustee Kreis's comment, based on Trustee Crowley's comment, I felt strongly that I needed to go back to my original position and not eliminate retiree insurance for non-union employees. So what I have done in this document that I emailed to everybody today, I don't know if everyone printed a copy for themselves. Basically, the first part of the policy is pretty much the same. Paragraph 1, general information. Paragraph 2, the plan. Paragraph 3, medical insurance. Those sections are all primarily the same. Under paragraph 2, Trustee Killily had asked me, if you remember, I included a paragraph about the vision plan. That paragraph was located at the top of that section, and Trustee Killily asked me if I would relocate it underneath the list of the plans, just for clarity's sake, which I did. And then also, Trustee Killily asked me to make one other qualification revision, and that would be under the medical insurance, paragraph B. It currently reads, all qualified employees who reach age 65 regardless of their hire date and/or their qualified dependents who reach age 65 and become eligible for Medicare. That phrase, regardless of their hire date, had been moved. It used to read, all qualified employees regardless of their hire date who reach age 65. Don and I went back and we reviewed that, and we felt that it was a little bit confusing. The reason why regardless of their hire date is included in that paragraph B is because we may have a situation where we do have current employees who work for the village who reach 65 and continue to work for the village. So they would no longer be qualified to participate in the medical plan. They would have to participate in the supplement. And the village's payment would still be 80, the split on the premium would still be 80-20, just like it is for all the other employees, for all the other coverages. So that was just one clarification there in paragraph B. The major change to this plan is found in paragraph 6. Okay, so what I did was I took paragraph A, the entirety of paragraph A in section 6, is paragraph that already existed in last week's draft, and I believe it's in the red line draft that was provided on board docs today. Okay? It basically states that for qualified retirees only who are hired on or before May 31st, 2019, but they're not eligible for Medicare, they can continue to participate in the same medical and dental plans. Okay? And then this is where the cost containment comes in. The village's premium payment obligation will be limited to the HMO plan coverage, and it'll still be 80-20. However, any retiree can opt to choose a more expensive plan, and they would be required to pay 100% of the variance between the HMO and the plan that they choose. And then for clarification, I split out subsection 2 and 3. 2 reads, the village's premium payment obligation for dental will still be 80-20. And then paragraph 3, this is where Trustee Kreis's request to make the correction came in. That's highlighted in green in subsection 4. So it reads, upon the date that the qualified retiree becomes eligible for Medicare, then the qualified retiree, 1, shall no longer be eligible to participate in the medical plans or the dental plan. 2, may have the option to continue to participate in the dental plan at the qualified retiree's sole cost and expense. 3, shall become eligible for the Medicare supplement only. And 4, the village's premium payment obligation is 80% and the qualified retiree's premium obligation is 20%. The village shall have no obligation to pay any insurance premium for any medical plan or dental plan on behalf of the qualified retirees who are eligible for Medicare. Paragraph B discusses qualified retirees who are hired on or after June 1st. So I used paragraph A as the template for paragraph B, but what has been changed is the split for the HMO coverage. Instead of 80-20 that the current employees get, all new employees would have a split of 60-40. So to me, that's a pretty significant cost containment item right there. In addition, paragraph 2 has the same language with regards to the dental coverage. The dental coverage will be 60-40. And then paragraph 3, upon the retiree becoming eligible for Medicare, again, they shall no longer be eligible to participate in the medical plan or the dental plan, may have the option to continue to participate in the dental plan at their at the retiree's sole cost and expense, shall become eligible for the Medicare supplement only. And number 4, and this is the biggest cost containment matter, this and shall solely be obligated to pay 100% of the Medicare supplement premium. So, and then the last sentence is the same as the last sentence in paragraph A. So does anybody have any questions about that? And I discussed this with you, Don, and you were comfortable with this.
Weren't we under the, I was under the impression that we had voted not to offer any retirement insurance for those hired after 5/31 of 2019.
Well, not necessarily. We had discussed it, but I don't think that we were all in consensus of it. I know that back in the beginning of May, I think at the first board meeting in May, there was a plan that was presented to the board and it was voted down because I had added some language to it and it was voted down. And so I said I would go back and revise it. But, you know, after getting Karen's email from last week and Sandy's email on Sunday, I'm firm in this position. I strongly believe that it's not the right time for the village to eliminate retiree insurance for new employees as of June 1st. Our village right now is not a village that's paying salaries or an hourly wage at the top tier, let alone even the middle tier of salary ranges in the south suburbs. So if we have employees that are non-union employees that are good employees and we would like to try to retain them for the long term, the only way we're going to be able to do that is to be able to offer them some type of retiree insurance. And
we still can through a contractual agreement with the village.
But non-union employees don't have a contractual agreement. And that's where I don't feel that it's fair, because we have police and fire who participate in the CBA. So that was the language, if we could just kind of get through the rest of this, that was the language that I added in the new paragraph number 8. That was the language that Sandy had requested with regards to employees who are now part of a collective bargaining unit. We're talking about non-union employees who do not have the ability to negotiate in a collective bargaining unit, and it's not that many people. It's a very limited number of people. I mean, I don't know what the actuarial number would be for us to guess how many of our employees will even be here long-term for 20 years. But it's going to be a small handful.
But I think your recall is right, because I went back and looked at the Finance Committee meeting minutes from April 16th.
Mm-hmm.
And the suggested change was future retirees who were hired after, at that time it was May 1st, may participate at their own expense 100%. At that time, the discussion was it would mirror the Public Works contract.
Well, I'm not in favor of that. So,
Well,
and
don't you have it in here, number 3? What does number 3 say?
no, it's on an email, Don. It's not on that document, it's on the board docs. I apologize. It's right here. It's the email I sent.
This is the email.
That is the email?
Yeah.
Okay, go
Number
to,
3.
go to paragraph 6B.
Wait a minute. 6. Oh, what, sorry. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm in agreement. If you guys remember, probably over a year ago, Karen and Don brought this up at a finance committee meeting, that we need to do some cost containment on our insurance expenses. And so Karen brought up the idea of limiting the HMO, limiting new employees' insurance to the HMO plan. And if they wanted a higher plan, then they could pay the difference.
And that again mirrors, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, that again mirrors the public works contract.
And that
Right.
language is in here.
Right.
And that language is in here.
Well, in this document that's attached, under medical insurance, number 3, actually, under retiree insurance, number 2, I'm sorry, never mind, I misread something. It's just for,
Yeah, under
Paragraph 4.
paragraph 3, Jerry, for the medical insurance, the current employees still get an 80-20 split on whatever plan they choose. So the current employees' insurance has not changed at all.
Correct.
Subparagraph 2, under the medical insurance, it says, for qualified employees who are hired on or after 6/1, the premium payment will be 80% of the HMO. And then the employee picks up the 20%, and if they want a higher medical plan, then they pay the difference plus the 20% of the HMO.
well,
So that paragraph 3 hasn't changed.
I'm still strongly in favor of what we discussed at the Finance Committee about not offering retiree insurance.
And I appreciate that, and I apologize that this has taken so long. This is my very first foray into working with the board and at the Finance Committee and trying to put together a policy. And so I realize that I have made some procedural errors along the way. But in the whole year that we've been talking about this, no one on this board has taken up the responsibility to draft an actual policy for us to approve. So I volunteered to do that in February. And, you know, after looking at the police CBA, after looking at the fire department CBA, I don't recall if I saw one from Public Works. And going through all of this, and as I'm drafting it and trying to accommodate everybody's requirements, I really, really feel strongly that this is just, again, not the right time to eliminate retiree insurance. I know that we've discussed it. I don't know that we ever had a unanimous, and like the mayor has always said, we don't all have to always agree on everything. We're not always going to be 100% unanimous in every decision that we make. But I just don't feel that it's the right time right now for us to eliminate retiree insurance.
I'm very comfortable with the new language you provided, Trustee Gaffney. I think it's a very fair and reasonable of different opinions, but I'm very comfortable with, there's some cost containment, and I like it.
And I have to concur as well, and I have to disagree with you, though, trustee, that you said you didn't follow policy or procedures or something like that. I believe you have.
Well, I could have handled things
I
a
think you
little
did,
different.
I think you did a great job putting it together.
And to that point, trustee, the one minor issue that has come up under medical for all qualified employees, first of all, let me say in support of what you've said. When I was going through the original policy, I had to go through 4 different voluminous renditions of healthcare law, from Medicare to the Illinois Insurance Act to COBRA, and we had different statuses, dependents, we had active employees, recent retired employees, employees with dates. So this was a Herculean task, and every word in trying to explain a policy with regard to healthcare is wrought with misinterpretation, which could result in a misstatement of fact. And so that's why all the amendments and changes that I made, even down to
Right.
words, were so important because every time I tried to reflect the law, I was compelled to put 16 pages in there, and that's not what a policy is supposed to do.
Right.
We don't want a policy to do that.
Right.
Needless to say, these 5 pages or 4 pages, whatever it comes out to be, is going to be completely or significantly inadequate in expressing what the technical law is, but that's not the intent. The intent is to
Right.
advise the workers of what benefits they have and what they don't.
Right.
Pursuant to that, my only statement with regard to the re-revisions were when I changed the language for number 2 for all qualified employees who reach age 65.
You're on the wrong one.
Wait,
You should be reading the email.
Does he have the email?
Right.
I know I sent you the email.
Yeah, and
this
and
morning.
that's the one that says that all qualified employees returning the language to.
Wait, which, hold on, are you under section 6?
I'm under medical insurance.
Page
Oh.
3,
Okay, that's,
Medical insurance.
that's paragraph
With
3.
reference to employees under age 65, Medicare law requires the village or prohibits the village from throwing someone off a plan once they turn 65.
Oh,
And again,
really?
that's just for qualified employees.
Well, we're not throwing them off, we're just telling them that they have.
Not retired
Employees.
employees.
No, this is under paragraph 3 for medical insurance, so it's paragraph B, and that's the one that reads, all qualified employees who reach age 65 regardless of their hire date or their qualified dependents who reach age 65 and become eligible for Medicare shall no longer be eligible to participate in the medical plan and shall be eligible for the Medicare supplement only. So you're telling me that's illegal?
That we cannot throw someone off when they turn 65.
Okay.
But to your point, whether that comes up, it's not going to come up very often, and that would be if that person decides they would prefer the village plan rather than going on Medicare.
So can I change this language to say they have the option
Yes,
of staying on the village plan or the option of going to the
Absolutely,
supplement?
yes.
And would that hold true for their qualified dependents as well?
yes.
Okay, hold on, let me write it quick note. Needs to,
I don't think the village plan will offer past 65. When you turn 65, the insurance company won't insure you.
well, that might be the case, but I guess what he's saying is we can't legally put it in a document that we're telling them you're no longer eligible. If it's in the insurance
insurance
policy, that's a
company,
whole
yeah,
different
okay,
thing.
yeah, all right.
But we can't say it.
We can't
The insurance
tell them.
company can say it, but we
Okay,
can't.
all right.
Is what I'm
Okay,
gleaning from this. Okay.
Well, I have to say I disagree with this. I think there was a big thing when Public Works decided that, you know, it was okay that they didn't get retiree insurance. And I think the trend definitely is that from statewide to other governmental agencies to private industries, that retiree insurance is not offered. I think, you know, when you're talking about this, you know, we're talking about Medicare being, in a few years, it's going to be not solvent, and the government's going to do something. What's the government going to do? The government's going to sit there and they're going to find some way of cutting benefits. That means that what you had 80-20 today, what you have at 60-40 will be the same as 80-20, so you haven't saved anything. The only way, you know, you're giving an open-ended expense with absolute no control on it if that's.
Don, the village has had the same open-ended expense for the past 40 or 50 years, as long as they've offered insurance. And in my view, what we're trying to do here is put some cost containment on it. Just like we put cost containment on the medical plan, we're trying to put some cost containment on the retiree insurance.
Well, that's great, but I think the cost containment should be, we shouldn't offer medical insurance
Okay,
past 65.
okay. I thought we were on the same page on Monday when we emailed, but obviously not. And that's fine. Everybody is entitled to their opinion, how they feel about this. I just don't, again, because the village does not have the capability of paying our employees, you know, qualified employees at the higher end of the salary range, we have to be able to provide our employees with some decent type of benefits so that we can attract and retain some good employees and keep them long-term, because instead of having all the turnover. We
well, I
can't,
don't think we've had all the turnover.
No, what turnover are you talking about? We had turnover for when we were paying people $10 and $12 an hour. We're not.
okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the whole entire staff in the administration department in front brand new?
I don't think that's because of their pay.
Yeah, it's not because of that.
Okay, well,
I mean, we've always been on the
That's-
lower middle.
There are other reasons why there are new employees up front, but
Right.
I've heard a lot from a lot of the ones that left. Pay was a big thing.
okay, finally, the last paragraph that's brand new is paragraph 8. And it's headed qualified employees transition from union to non-union position. If a qualified employee who is part of a collective bargaining unit accepts a non-union position within the village, then the qualified employee shall retain the employee insurance benefits and retiree benefits outlined in the collective bargaining agreement as of the date the qualified employee commences the non-union position. Sandy and I have discussed this. I was initially not in favor of this language. I thought that, I felt that if an employee leaves the union to take a non-union position, then they should be subject to the non-union insurance that's outlined in paragraph 6 here. But Sandy had given me some examples and explained why she felt this language is important, and so I have a better understanding now of the reason for this language, so I'll explain. So,
Can you?
Well, I can explain.
Can you be more specific where you're at? You're saying paragraph 6.
I'm sorry, no, I'm on paragraph, I'm on the email document I sent you today, I'm in the very last paragraph,
Oh,
paragraph
not-
8.
Not in the agenda?
No,
Oh,
not
it's
in the
not
agenda, I
correct.
apologize.
It's 8.
I'm talking about the email document I sent you today.
So like I had said on the email that I had sent to everybody on Sunday, this was language that I thought was important from a perspective of, if we're talking about not decreasing or increasing benefits, the one way to do that is, I've been a big proponent of, obviously, people who go out of the union to a non-union position are people that we feel are management material. For example, our chiefs, our superintendents, our deputy superintendents and all of that. And I feel that we shouldn't either penalize or reward based on that. So, for example, if a policeman or a fireman comes out who still has retiree insurance, and this is not going to affect anybody who's currently working for the village. This is going to only affect somebody who starts after tomorrow or the next day.
Except for Public Works.
Well, except for Public Works. Then they would get that benefit that they were promised when they started, when they've negotiated contracts for, and that would be it. On the reverse side, somebody who's given up their right to retirement insurance shouldn't come out of the union and then have retirement insurance. If you were compensated to come and agreed to not have retiree insurance and it wasn't important to you and you decided we're going to give that up for an extra 2% or 3%, then coming out of the union to a non-union position should not entitle you to that retirement insurance. That's why I felt it was important to put that in there.
Right.
Okay, can you amend that one paragraph, and we'll have it on the agenda for next week for approval?
Yes, I will amend the
I
paragraph
think
that,
we've talked about this for
that would be
10
paragraph
years.
3B. Yes, and then I'm going to put this on the agenda for approval next week.
I wanted to thank the trustee for her time and effort in putting this together for us.
You're welcome.
Yes. Next.
Okay. Okay. Discussion of the ordinance of the registration of defaulted mortgage and vacant properties. All right, so I reviewed this afternoon. I gave everybody, so I apologize for not everyone having a copy of the insurance plan, but I did give everybody a copy of this ordinance. So I just wanted to go through some of this. As I read through this document, it doesn't really address vacant properties. So in the first, well, not the first, it was 1, 2, 3, 4. So in the fourth whereas, I highlighted that language there because that is the definition of registerable properties, okay? And it includes properties with defaulted mortgages and subject to foreclosure action or foreclosed upon, and vacant properties. So the definition of registerable properties does include vacant properties. But I just want to make sure that the way that language is drafted, somebody wouldn't interpret that to mean a foreclosed property which is vacant. Because we have to make sure that this ordinance addresses vacant properties that are not foreclosed, and then foreclosed properties that may or may not be vacant. So I'm not sure if this requires a fix or an adjustment. I'm not sure. Okay.
Trustee, I would just say that the 3 other municipalities whose ordinances I reviewed, who are doing pro-champs, they were all good with the description and the whereases, as well as
Okay.
under the definitions, evidence of vacancy. The intent of the ordinance is clear, but I get what you're saying. I too had the same go-round with, it doesn't prominently state the vacancy element of it, but the definition of vacancy is in there, and of course, the ordinance does refer to who it applies as being vacant properties also.
Okay, also, I have just kind of a global question. I'm just jotting a note here. Okay, there are references throughout this document to register borough properties, and then there's references to properties that's not capitalized, which means it's not a capitalized term, it's just lowercase p properties. Then there's references to real property. So to me, it was a little confusing because when you, okay, and then before we flip too far in advance, on page 3 in section 4-23-1, I identified properties with prolonged vacancy in excess of 30 days with defaulted or defaulted mortgages regardless of occupancy status. Because again, we have to be able to, this ordinance needs to be able to encompass both of those scenarios. So it was on page 3. So that was the note that I put in here. Need to include an exception for vacant rental properties whereby the owner advises the village that the owner is in the process of rehabbing the property or working to secure a new tenant. So we don't necessarily need to include all vacant properties in this because we already have a vacant property registration. We want to capture properties that have prolonged vacancy. I don't remember if it had 90 days in here. I might have deleted it and changed it from 90 to 30. So that's something we have to decide on. The next, okay, under definitions, annual registration was actually towards the bottom. I noticed that these definitions seem to be in alphabetical order, so I just relocated annual registration. Actually, I wanted to change that from annual, it should be semi-annual, so it does need to go back down to the bottom of the list. But I thought that we had discussed, or I don't know that I would be in favor of just having properties register once a year because there is so much movement once, with mortgage companies, the way mortgage companies electronically move their properties and they pool mortgage loans, which are active mortgage loans and could be some foreclosed or properties that are in the process of foreclosure or who have been defaulted. Loans get packaged and sold all the time. If we only require registration once a year, we're potentially going to miss properties that have been sold and the new owner of that, not properties, I apologize, mortgage liens that have been sold, and we would potentially lose track of who the new owner of that mortgage property would be. So I feel it's necessary that we amend this to be semi-annual registration.
That is Superintendent Weinert's recommendation. There was some concern that that'd be a lot of extra work, but we think pro-champs will do lion's share of the work. So Superintendent Weinert's recommendation is to do semi-annual at $300 a time per registration.
And
Okay.
if I could address the vacant rental property trustee, I think it becomes clear in the practical application of the enforcement of this ordinance, if you read the evidence of vacancy, and this is applying to not foreclosed properties, but to the vacant property, shall mean any condition on its own or combined with other conditions present would lead a reasonable person to believe that the property is vacant, such as Conditions may include but not limited to overgrown or dead vegetation, past due utility notices, disconnect utilities, accumulation of trash, abandoned, so on and so forth, auto parts. If that rental property does not have those conditions on it and it's not being occupied, I don't think it would apply under our ordinance. And certainly, the superintendent is not going to enforce the ordinance under a property like that is known to be waiting to be rented out. And if we were to go to court on something like that, given the language in the ordinance, I don't think we would prevail if the owner keeps the weeds down, keeps the utilities on, keeps the water going, and is maintaining his property.
Okay. All right, so then we don't need, so then my comment, my note comment under 4-23-1 is not needed then?
We don't need that. You got the excess of 30 days in there. I think that covers.
Okay. That's fine. All right, then continuing on now, you can see throughout here, this is where, all right, I missed in the definition of default, there's the word property in lowercase. So we've got definitions in here. We have the definition of, definition of real property. Is in here somewhere, yes. There's a definition of real property. So, but then the term real property was not used throughout the document. So I just need clarification. Well, we all need clarification. If we're gonna if we're gonna have a defined term in the ordinance, does it make sense that we use that defined term throughout the document?
Could I just ask, did the attorney look at this already?
Yes.
Why don't we just give this to the attorney to let him clean it up? Why are we going through this? We're not, this is the attorney.
Kathy's free.
This is the attorney's job to do this, not you. This is the attorney's job to look at this contract and make sure that it makes sense. Right now, it
Well,
doesn't.
do any of the other board members care if it makes sense? Do you guys read it? Do you have an opinion about it?
The attorney is going to give us a copy in his opinion that this document makes sense, so that you don't have to go through this and do this. The attorney has to go through this and make sure that all the clauses and things that you're pointing out make sense. He basically assumed, I think, that the document from the other municipalities made sense. This doesn't make sense.
And I did make some changes to it.
Right, but this
Wow.
doesn't make sense for us, let's put it that way.
And Kathy, the one, I don't know, I did send you an email, and I don't see where it was.
You're correct. I forgot. I did not, I meant to put a note in here somewhere about that. Trustee Kreis sent a note asking that there be an exception in here for properties that are purchased by the South Suburban Land Bank. And I guess I'm concerned about that because if we give that exception to the South Suburban Land Bank, then we also probably need to give it to the Cook County Land Bank. But as you recall, last week, we had a situation where we had a resident in town call because a house that was next door to her, she thought it was abandoned. It was vacant, had been vacant for a long time. The yard was full of trash. The weeds and the grass were about 10 inches tall. It didn't look like anybody was taking care of the property. So Karina went out there, investigated. She issued a citation and come to find out that the Cook County Land Bank owned this property. So my concern, and we have no idea when the Cook County Land Bank buys a property here in town. We would have to wait until the Cook County Land Bank actually pays no attention to it, or the property manager pays no attention to it. It falls into disrepair. We send somebody out to write a citation. We find out, oh dear, Cook County Land Bank owns it. So I realize that the village has a different relationship with the South Suburban Land Bank.
Very different.
But the South Suburban Land Bank hasn't really been real up to par on making sure that their properties are, don't have vegetation
Well,
growing.
they are, they're working on it. We asked them, and Don and I were at a land bank meeting on Monday.
Okay, well, are they gonna send somebody out to kill the
They're
weeds?
behind just like we're behind.
Okay, well,
I could suggest-
But I would say the registration is fine, but I would say I would ask the
Waiver of
board
the
to
fee.
waive the fee.
Waive
Yeah,
the
and
fee
I
for
think
the
that's
South Suburban
what
Land
was
Bank.
discussed, that there could be language
Well,
that would require the registration, but.
we can waive the fee, but if it gets to a point where we've waived the fee and they continue to not maintain their property and we have to go after them, then we.
The land bank is interested in maintaining the properties. That's
Okay.
it's not a
Okay,
question.
I'm
Well,
just,
what if
Fine.
we waive the fee semi-annually?
We waive the fee forever. They don't charge us for their services.
What I'm saying is, in order to make sure that everyone's compliant, taking care of their property,
Yeah.
they register with us, but we waive the fee.
Yes.
And semi-annually, the building department can make sure the property's still in good repair, and then we can agree to waive it.
And trustees,
Just be on
the language in the ordinance would simply say that for those two entities, both the South and Cook County
Do we
land
have to
banks,
include, I don't know if we have to include Cook County. Do we have to include Cook County?
They haven't asked us to, so.
I'm not inclined to because
if that's the case, then we could just put language in there saying that the South
Suburban
South Suburban Land Bank
Development Authority.
may apply for a waiver semi-annually, and it shall be waived.
Why do we have to clarify anybody? Somebody can ask for a waiver, and the board, whoever that might be at the time, can make that decision. What if we have a big developer that's gonna tear down buildings, but we're working on a plan? What-
I think that may be iffy with regard to equal protection
Yeah.
issues, and someone, again, because this process has not been completely vetted yet. In New Jersey, in that New Jersey case, they were suing over this being applied to tax redeemers. And so, we have to be
Well,
careful.
that's just it. I don't want tax scavengers coming in here and buying up taxes and not maintaining the properties. Because obviously, we went through all that from 2008 till about 2012 or 13.
And in Illinois, the issue has not come up, but it may.
Okay, well, I don't have a problem with, we still require the South Suburban Land Bank
register.
to register,
But
but
waive the
we will
fees.
agree to waive the fee.
Right.
But I think for Cook County, if you want Cook County to do anything in Midlothian to buy our properties, which,
Well, wouldn't it be nice if they communicated with us and told us that they bought a property in our
well,
community?
I would say, ask them to register the same way, but again, it's a benefit to Midlothian to have them buy properties that are foreclosed. So, I don't want to say, okay, we're gonna charge you money, and then have them say, well, fine, we just won't buy any of your properties. It's a benefit for them to buy our properties too.
Do you have any contacts at the Cook County Land Bank?
No.
No.
Rob
no.
Rose is the executive director, but we don't have any. And even Russ did not even know about the properties that they have been picking up in other municipalities, correct, Don?
Right.
He said they're going after some properties, and Russ was not even aware of it.
Given that you guys are involved with the South Suburban Land Bank, I would ask one of you to contact Cook County Land Bank and ask them if they would please cooperate with us and provide us a list of properties they've bought.
I remember Jacqueline from Commissioner Miller's office said she was gonna look into the Cook County Land Bank, so.
Yeah,
I'll hear back
because
from her, but-
we need, it would be nice for the building department to have a list, because obviously, if they're buying the property, we know it's vacant. So we are gonna require that they register, but we can agree to waive the fee, but it would be nice if they would kind of work in cooperation with us and keep their properties maintained, and not wait till they get a ticket.
Okay.
So, all right, in paragraph 423-4, it says pursuant to the provisions of the village or its designee, somebody shall establish a registry cataloging each registerable property. But it doesn't say whom. So I think there was probably a blank that needed to be filled in.
Wait, are we giving it to the attorney to look at this?
Yeah, well, does anybody else have any other questions or
I just-
concerns about this?
Let
Okay.
the attorney do his job. He looks at this, and if now he knows our concerns, which, you're
Well,
right.
does anybody, I'm the only one who's speaking about my comments here. Does anybody else have any comments or concerns, Don?
Well, Kathy, we just got this.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I know.
we just
Wait.
got it.
You got mine today.
Yes.
You guys got this ordinance a week ago.
Correct.
Well, I believe trustee Crowley wishes to speak about her concerns.
Yes, go ahead.
Could,
Sam.
you have the floor as far as I'm
I actually
concerned?
have a question. So when we talked about this last time, we talked about a progressive vacant building fee. Where does that apply? 'Cause I couldn't find
I
it.
wouldn't agree with that at all. It doesn't, well, I
So
mean,
you think, so hold on, wait, let's, you don't agree with that. So the person that lives at 123 Main Street,
Yep.
that's lived next to a boarded up building for 5 years and can't sell their home, that home should be treated the same as someone whose home is just vacant for a month till they rehab it or something
the
else.
reason the properties are vacant isn't because the banks don't want to get rid of it, they can't get rid of it.
This isn't just banks though, I'm not talking about.
Or vacant
foreclosure.
properties. These people are paying real estate taxes, they're paying insurance, The business of progressively raising inspection fees is a pittance to them.
I'm not talking about inspections. This isn't an inspection fee.
Raising,
This is when you leave your dilapidated building
Yeah.
vacant for 4, 5, 6 years, and it brings down the property value of good people who are paying taxes, who are paying all of these things. They should not have to suffer because these buildings are
It
vacant
isn't-
and boarded up.
it isn't gonna
And
make a
I have a
difference.
handful of them that we can talk
it
about.
isn't gonna make a difference.
Well, it may
Why
not, but
wouldn't
it'll make me feel better. That we're doing something.
Wouldn't it also increase the cost of the property and
I'm
make it
not being
prohibitive?
smart aleck. It will, and
Yeah,
I should have said it
understand.
that way, but it will at least make me feel like we're doing something to help these people who are in no other way getting relief.
We are helping them because of the pro-champs is going to make us more, give us at least a better shot to contact the people who actually have the property so that we can actually get it cleaned up one way or the other.
So the boarded building over on Keystone, that's been boarded since, I'm sorry, Chief, how long has it been boarded?
The apartment, is it an apartment building?
Yes, that has been boarded.
3 years?
That is a conduit for all sorts of bad and negative things that the people around there want to clean up, but it's just boarded because it's easier than the landlord coming out and doing
Fixing it.
something and fixing it and doing everything. So they board it
Oh,
and
is that-
secure it.
Is that a condo or an apartment?
No, it's apartments.
It's a six-flat.
It's a building. That is an eyesore. It attracts criminal activity. It depreciates the home values around
The whole
that.
block?
It does all of these things. And I really feel like it is not fair to the people who are trying to make their block better, make their community better. You have to look at that every day. And maybe you're right, maybe they'll just pay. If it's a graduate, if it's $50 a year, that person's probably gonna pay it. But if it gets to the point where we're charging him $5,000 semi-annually, maybe he's gonna think twice about leaving that building there and think about putting it on the market or selling it or taking care of it.
Or maybe it'll just abandon it.
And that would be fine.
That would be,
And if he abandoned it,
that's how
that
suburban land banking
that
come
would
in,
be,
take it.
that would be to our
don't-
advantage.
We don't have to wait that long. We don't have to wait.
We've been waiting 3 years.
We don't have to wait that long.
But in 3 years, that's one property, and I have a list that we can go through. We have the burnt out buildings that nothing's been done with, that are vacant. We have all of these buildings that.
Can you
we're doing
give me
nothing
the
with.
addresses of those buildings?
We've talked about, I don't have them off the top of my head, but yes, I can.
Because if you give me the addresses, Sandy, I will look,
I think I put them on the list I sent out a couple months ago to everybody about the ones that we were talking about when we first started talking
Well,
about
if you-
this, but I
if you-
will, yes.
because I can look at the taxes, and if they have 2 years,
Plus the,
I can tell you.
plus
which
the
ones you have.
water.
or the water, or the
shut
water,
off.
then,
The land bank could go after abandonment for them.
right, that was my thought, then we could get the land bank
I
involved.
totally agree, but this is something we've been talking about since I've been sitting here. So we've asked all of these times, what can we do about these buildings? And we've had all these different conversations, and this was one area where it seems like we could possibly start going after some of these people. And I'm not talking about good people who have good, we all want good people in our communities. I'm not talking about those people. But properties that are vacant for 2, 3, 4, 8, 10 years and left, just because someone might pay the taxes or no one's foreclosing on it, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah, it is. But I think the land bank can help us clean some of it up, and if you want to do the graduated fees, then if you think that will help, then I'll vote for it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I think I actually sent a comment to Kathy that said I would be in favor of the graduated fees.
I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah, I did, that was in,
It was a different email.
no, I think it was the same email, about waiving the fees for the land bank.
Do we have an idea of what the graduated fees will be so that the attorney can put the language in there?
No.
Can I ask the attorney?
Can you just make it up?
Can
Should
we
they
set
double or
the
triple?
fees as a separate, attachment to the ordinance? So that we can adjust that without?
Like change it via resolution and not
Fee
change the
schedule.
ordinance every time?
Yeah, like a fee schedule. That would be something I would think might make it more simplistic, so that we can change the fees whenever the need arises.
Well,
Exhibit A.
Well, it's something to
yeah, it
consider.
could be. We could attach it as the attached fee schedule. That could be done. I would just say that the numbers must be reasonable to the extent that it doesn't rise to the level of a taking. We could never charge $5,000 in registration fees. We most certainly will get sued, and we most certainly would be probably, because that amount of money would be considered the village taking the property. So that's why,
I obviously threw that out there.
yeah, I'm just saying, that's your limit.
Yeah, I know that he mentioned that the
That's
village of
my
Bolingbrook
Your
was
li- no,
gonna
your
do that, but
limitation
on
is-
commercial buildings, not residential.
on commercial properties.
Huh?
Bolingbrook's 5,000 on commercial
On
properties.
commercial properties, but,
But how about the graduated fines you're talking about too, right?
no, we're not talking about fines,
No,
we're
no,
talking
no,
about
I'm
the
just saying
registration.
for the
We're talking
building,
about the
for the
registration.
building department, you are gonna talk about graduated, you do have graduated fines. So you're gonna.
Yeah, but that's a separate ordinance, that's a
I
separate
understand-
thing.
I
We're just
understand
talking
that,
about
but we're talking-
graduated, we're talking about graduated registration fees for people who don't.
But you have to make them partly reasonable.
Okay, well, you know what, I'm all done. Nobody else wants to discuss any of the revisions, nobody else has any other questions, so.
And Trustee, you make a good point. I believe what was intended to be written, and again, I did not notice that, it should say pursuant to these provisions, strike the of the village or its designees. So when it was written originally, I think the language got covered. It said pursuant to these provisions, the village. That's what
Okay,
it should say.
well, you can go through the document and pick it apart, so,
So
thank you.
And this is gonna replace our present vacant property ordinance?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Right now, trustee, as you can see at the top of the ordinance, chapter 23, that is, chapter 23 is our current vacant property ordinance. We're taking that out, and we're plugging this in.
Okay, then we do, but a lot of this language that's drafted in here just pretty much is discussing defaulted mortgages and default, properties that have a defaulted lien on them or that are in foreclosure. They doesn't really specifically call out vacant properties, so we do need to make some adjustments to that. I feel we need to make some adjustments. I don't know how anybody else feels about it. Okay.
Is this for approval next week?
No, we need to, there's too
By
much
the
here.
end of the month, let's get it by the
Yeah,
end of the month.
we need to get a revised draft and review it again.
Pet ordinance.
All right,
we don't-
and I'll try, and I'll give you
Contract.
Stan's information.
All we need is,
I just ran out of time
Whatever
today.
word you used for it, I don't know.
all we need is authorization for the mayor to enter into the agreement with the pet.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I think we have to change a couple things. Well, I'll talk to you.
Okay.
Okay, next item I want to discuss is the flashing digital sign ordinance. Okay. So, the building department has been getting huge pushback from a lot of businesses as to, the mayor signed a letter that was drafted for him with regard, and it went out to businesses that have these electric message board signs. And a lot of them are pushing back because the way, if you look under the public content here on board docs, if you look at 1114.2, it lists prohibited signs. And then Q, flashing signs. No signs or other advertising structure shall have lights or illuminations that flash, move, rotate, scintillate, blink, flicker, vary in intensity or color, or use intermittent electrical pulsations except for time, temperature, date signs, and electronic message boards. Well, everyone's saying, well, I got an electronic message board, so it's an exception. And I just would like to know if anybody on the board recalls when this zoning ordinance was put through, do you recall what the intent and purpose was for the exclusion of, I can get the time, date, temperature signs because they're small and they don't cause a nuisance when people are driving down the road. But an electronic message board to me and an electronic sign are the same thing. So I don't know why the electronic message boards were listed as an exclusion.
Don't recall.
So,
I don't think we I don't think we ever passed it. I think it was before our time.
No, this is in the zoning ordinance in the chapter 11 or title 11 that was adopted in 2008.
I wasn't on in 2008, so as I'm saying.
You were not on the board in 2008?
No, we only have one trustee that was on,
When did you join the board?
2008.
Okay.
So,
So BK.
so before D, dummy, yeah, but anyway, I think the wording that we have in the ordinance, you sent me the regs from IDOT today.
I sent- Did everybody get that email, by the way?
Yeah, and the one link doesn't work.
The what?
One link doesn't work.
Oh, okay. I didn't have time to open all of them. I only was
You
able
just
to
did the
open
one,
one.
yeah.
So,
So it pretty much mirrors what that says. I mean, that ordinance, but I looked up, just in the Google electronic message board, and it seems to have a different definition of electronic message board than what we have.
Road construction message board, the ones up on the
Yes,
highways.
yes, that's
electronic
electronic message boards. It's not for just a
so
business.
these electronic signs are not
Right.
technically
That's
considered
right.
electronic
That's
message
right.
boards?
I
Okay,
think it's right, I think it's right.
okay.
And I guess my question would be, but all of these signs, because if somebody wants to put a sign up, they have to get a sign permit, right?
And they do get sign permits,
Right.
and the village is giving them a sign permit, but the problem is, all of these electronic signs now come with all this real cool digital imaging and software that you can make, champagne bottles explode and flip and flash and all kinds of crazy stuff, and it's very distracting, and it's against some of the IDOT rules. The village is not against businesses having electronic signs, but we are against businesses having electronic signs that cause a nuisance because their script flips, flashes, scintillates, all of these things. It's intermittent, and it causes a huge distraction. I know, I had mentioned to you guys before, I was at the west end of 147th Street coming eastbound, and I thought there was an accident on the side of the road, and it wasn't an accident. It was an electronic sign over a business that was flipping and flashing at 8 o'clock at night in the dark. So,
I think legally, what our ordinance, and I agree with this building superintendent who reviewed it and tried to figure out, how
Yeah.
electronic message board did not essentially undo all the rest of it. I think at the time that the ordinance was drafted, it was referencing Las Vegas type of signs in which it's not a message board. It's a cowboy, it's a dog, whatever, a sign that is flashing and moving. It didn't contemplate the modern sign.
right.
Which has the ability to have a message board with words doing those same things. So I think at the time that this was written, it was intended to exclude words to provide messages, like the Village of Midlothian message board. That is not in violation, that's what they were intending. Not anticipating that someday in the future, that very message board, which simply had words, was going to be able to replicate the bucking cowboy of Las Vegas and all the rest of the things that you're trying to prohibit.
I think the ordinance is written correctly, and it's our discretion on how to apply it, so.
Okay, well, thank you for that clarification, and I will give direction to the building
And-
department and the superintendent to continue.
And when you say blowback, you mean a couple people? Because I've
Yeah,
talked
how
to
many-
the superintendent all the time, and I've gotten the phone calls, and it's not been, the major corporations have.
You may not have gotten a lot of phone calls, but I think when Fred is out in the community, I think he's getting, because Fred is the one who's out in the community visiting the businesses, and after the letter was sent out, about a week or two later, Fred went out to visit the businesses to make sure that they got their letter, and to bring them an extra copy of said letter in the event that they did not get the letter, and that's when he was getting the pushback, so.
There's a lot of communities that use a sign ordinance that would prohibit using lights that are the same color as emergency vehicles. So, that can be considered, that's something that has
Yeah.
been come up in the past.
But I have noticed, though, that since the letter has gone out and since Fred has visited a lot of these properties, I've noticed that a lot of the businesses have kind of calmed down some of their, the programming on their sign. So it's a little bit, it's not as they are not as distracting as they have been.
So-
I'm just saying that, I just want
The
to.
major corporations in town that have electronic signs have all called me, and they, no problem whatsoever. Not a problem at all. We'll look into it, and we'll address it. So I've heard from a couple other that aren't real happy with it, but
Right, okay,
his job is to expect blowback, I think.
right. Vehicle disposition. There is, oh, there we go. The building department is requesting an ordinance to dispose of the 2003 Ford Explorer, and the VIN number is listed here in the public comment. That's a vehicle that Fred had been driving, and the transmission blew out on it, so it's time to put it to rest.
Nearly asphyxiated?
Yes, twice. Okay, and I believe that's all I have, but I do reserve the right to ask questions at each time in the meeting. I think that's.
It's a given, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Trustee Kilby. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. In contrast, I just have one item.
Thank goodness.
Maria called me today, and she said that there was a conflict, which we should have thought about, with our June 20th water bill workshop, that it is on a Thursday.
Yeah.
And of course, we would have to kick all the parking court, we would have to kick the parking court out of here to hold that workshop. So we have to either
Really?
change,
It's the Thursday?
yeah, we have to change the date of the workshop
It
or
wasn't on the calendar. Change the venue.
parking court?
It wasn't on the calendar when I looked. The calendar, yeah, it's on. My calendar now, it wasn't on the.
Oh, okay.
Because we looked at it
Parking
when we
court
did
is
the-
what, first and third? Okay.
First and third
And
Thursdays?
did you get a?
No, Moves Court's on a Monday.
Yeah,
Moves Court is on a
Moves
Monday.
But what's parking?
Pizza.
Yeah,
Huh?
Pizza, it's parking.
Oh,
And,
is that the third Thursday?
yes,
yes, it is.
yes, it is. And-
Then you know what, we're gonna have it at Sandy's house in her garage then.
That's fine.
And Maria was going to try to contact the Park District.
I did.
And,
they're not available.
okay, so we have to change the date. So do we want to do that now, or do we want to do that later?
Have we advertised this date? I mean,
It's in the newsletter.
Yeah, we've we can we get, Ready Lodge?
No.
I already called them.
Can we get,
How about the VFW?
yeah, how about the VFW? George?
Could we borrow the VFW?
What date?
Thursday the 20th?
Thursday, June 20th.
I've checked to see if it's all available then, but I think the auxiliary might be meeting that evening.
Okay. All right, so we'll have to figure
Well,
something.
how about one of the school gyms?
I suppose we could.
I mean,
I'm gonna leave it up to your discretion, sir. It's a public works function mostly. so
Public
it's-
Works Fund,
So,
yes,
so
okay,
it
fine.
is, you are, I am fully confident you can be in charge of it.
Misplaced, of course, but anyway. All right, thank you, that's all I have, Mayor.
Trustee Crowley.
Thank you, sir. Just a couple things tonight. First, for everybody who came out to the Micro Pantry's grand opening on Monday, I'd like to thank everybody. It was a huge success. Those of you who are on Facebook and who read the messenger, hopefully know all about it, as well as our website. We did the grand opening. It's going very well. We've been talking throughout the week, and I know Jean and Dylan have gone there a couple times and refilled it. So we are very, very excited, and it was a really nice ceremony, and I think everybody who was involved really did a lot of it. So thank you to everybody. I just want to remind everybody about our tax seminar, which is June 10th at 7 p.m. here, and as far as I know, and on our calendar, there are no conflicts with that. And if there are, we're going to really have some issues, because we have right now at least 30 people signed up to come. So it should be a good event. We are expecting someone from the assessor's office, someone from the Board of Review, and our own treasurer Britain to talk about property taxes, how they're calculated, and making sure people are getting the proper exemptions and that their property is classified property. So that will be next Monday in this room. I did have water coming around here too, just so you know, if I can scratch that. Saturday is the child ID, police department, so hopefully everybody will bring their children out to take care of the child identification kit. I think Chief Delaney explained it well a couple of weeks ago. It's a great opportunity for parents to have a kit that they can put in a safe place in the event of an emergency where they need that information. So if you have additional information or questions, you can certainly contact the police department. Chief Delaney loves to answer those questions. We can give out his direct number since he doesn't seem to know what day parking tickets for it is. I'd like to, just two more quick things, a parade update. We've had a lot of people step up and volunteer to help out with this year's Independence Day parade. We've gotten a lot of people return the pamphlets, or I'm sorry, the forms, and a lot of groups, especially from the village, that are going to participate. So we're really excited. If anybody has any suggestions or anything, or has a few hours to volunteer on that day, please send me an email or let me know. And to everybody who's volunteering, thank you. Thank you very much. This is it's going to be a really nice event, and hopefully everybody will be able to enjoy it, and the weather won't be 117 as last year. And last, but certainly not least, small little IT update. AT&T has notified us that they have officially brought fiber to our door, which is huge.
Holy cow.
We have a 60 to 90-day window at this point where the fiber will be brought into the building, and they're going to all make fun of me like they do about IT for this, but I'm under the impression that it will be a seamless transition, and there will be no problems.
Oh, boy.
I'm not quite
Famous
sure
last
that I
words.
believe that. Shortly after fiber is activated throughout the village, we will be turning on our new phone system. And shortly after that, we will integrate to our new virtual server. So we are 90 days away from completion, and it will be the best 90 days.
That's very exciting. Will everybody get new phones too?
Yes.
Okay.
Phones are already are already packaged into it. All the department heads went there, except for Nick, I don't think was with the village at that point.
Right.
But all the other department heads did go over to and played with the phones and got a lesson, and the phone people will be here to help with the transition, and will also be pre-programming to try to get as much of that done as possible.
Very good.
So the virtual server, is it?
No.
I
Is
did,
it what, sir?
I think it's getting a little old. Is it in the cloud or on the cloud?
It's virtual, sir.
So I met with the AT&T guy, I showed him where to put the thing. Just to be clear, Proven is bringing the cables
Yes.
from that to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I told him, but
A
I couldn't get a hold of you. I
term
don't know.
form.
Your answer.
What do they call it? So the guy who's gonna bring the wiring from the box to the village?
C-card.
What do they call themselves?
Wiring cameras.
Low voltage wire wiring?
Can you explain?
Yeah, we're gonna, and on that note, sir, we have nothing else.
Thank you, ma'am.
Is Proven or the attorney, someone contacted Simcoe to let them know we'll be terminating our service?
That will be done, that will be, we did talk about that. Maggie will be coordinating that with Proven, they will be having that conversation together. We are not under contract with anybody at this point. Our contract has expired.
Right, we're on a
according to
month-to-month,
Maggie.
right.
We're on a month-to-month. So once they are confident that all of the phones have been transferred, that all of the T1 lines are not being utilized, but there was another word they used, they're trying, we'll then do that. We'll just make sure we give them an extra week or so we can,
Just in case.
yeah.
And we'll also eliminate all our analog lines as well.
So does that mean that all the lines in the village will be VoIP lines?
Yeah.
Voice over IP?
Voice over
Oh,
IP.
wait.
Okay.
Yes.
All fiber optic with 99
Yeah,
point.
cavity?
She has no idea what it means, she just heard it before.
No, I've been using VoIP for 10 years, thank you very much, I knew what that was, when I used to work downtown.
Is that it?
I was done 5 minutes ago, sir.
Can I reserve trustee Cavaney's for a question?
Yes.
That I'm sorry, I forgot. And this, I guess, would be more for trustee Ivan. I emailed Maggie and him, and then in the response, the mayor was copied. I was reviewing the management letters, which I'd asked for in March, and I just received them for 2016, 2017. I just want to make sure that all of our deposits are collateralized appropriately.
They are.
They are.
They are.
They are.
What does that mean?
But the
What is the
auditor
management?
gave us 2 dings on that, 2016 and 2017.
Right, those are years
We
that
corrected that.
McLaren,
Oh,
those
those
years
from
that
the
McLaren
auditor.
was doing it, and they didn't mention anything about collateralization, so.
Okay.
I know I got a call 4 months ago from someone in People's Bank when they were transitioning from AJ Smith about re-collateralizing all of our accounts with them, so I know those are for certain.
Okay,
I haven't been-
What does that mean to collateralize a deposit?
They're insured.
Protect the money.
They're
We
insured.
have more money there than the FDIC insures, so we
Oh,
have to.
got it.
So they have to come up with collateral, and usually
So we
it's like,
put your car down as.
Great.
Chief
2000
car.
2004 CRV, there you go.
okay,
They're all
That'll cover
collateralized.
us. I got your back.
Reports you're thinking about, those are the ones that, when McGladrey was doing our audits, they mentioned nothing about collateralization. Lot Rock, and even when they came in to redo them, that's who caught it, and Treasurer Britton was able to get that all fixed quickly.
okay,
So
well, that's good to know.
that is good to know.
Okay, Mayor,
Oh, boy.
I just have one thing I want to bring up.
Yes, ma'am.
I believe, did all of you get a copy of the memo from Don Oliveri with regards to his walkthrough on the building?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so based on that memo, I don't think that it's worth the village's time, effort, or money to spend any money to have any other architect or any other company come through here and tell us what we already know. I am in full favor of Public Works moving forward to do an RFQ to replace that building, and possibly if there's room over by the reservoir, to move the whole Public Works operation over there so that we could use this space to readjust this building in the fire department and potentially the police department on this campus. I don't think that it's, I just don't, and maybe we don't have room to do all of that, but we need to start moving forward with the plan. We need to start getting some RFQs out there so that we can get some professionals in here to tell us, give us an idea of what kind of buildings we can put up that will maximize the space that we have to use. And I don't see any reason why Public Works shouldn't move forward with an RFQ on their building. Their building is dangerous, and it's a huge, huge liability for the village.
Well, I don't know how we know that. I mean,
Did you read the memo?
I read the thing, and I know that a new village hall is gonna cost $12 million.
I'm not talking about the village hall right now. I'm talking about the dangerous condition
Okay.
of both of the walls in Public Works.
Public Works
We
has
need
a-
to start somewhere.
Public
We
Works
need-
has Oliveri on it to look at it, right now.
They already
Oliveri-
looked at it. That's what was in his
He's
memo.
looking at it to work with contractors to get bids to fix the wall. Now, if he figures out that they can't fix the wall, that's another thing. But, I mean, we don't even know how much it is gonna be to fix the wall. Is it gonna be 100,000, or is it gonna be 2 million?
Well-
Now, until we know that, how do we know that it's worth spending the money to
So
move
you're
it?
telling me that Joe's already contacted Don
He did that,
Oliveri?
he did that 2 weeks ago.
Okay, well, I was not aware of that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I should.
Well, in that report, it also stated that the energy efficiency of it.
Right.
It's worth getting a new building compared to all the energy we're losing, and the employees' conditions.
Right.
The whole gamut, not just a wall.
Yeah, the whole,
And the steel building.
Well, you know,
right.
it
The
needs.
steel
okay.
is failing, there's not any insulation.
Right, it
I
needs,
mean,
it needs a wall, and it
two
needs
walls,
and
two.
a roof, and it does, and I'm not saying anything until I have hard facts to say, okay, here's what it is to fix this thing, where are we supposed to, and if you guys want to build a public works building, and.
How old is that building? I don't think it's worth fixing or repairing. We're
Well,
throwing
when-
bad money
When we
at,
get the,
good
when we
money
get the
after
figure
bad.
on it, then we'll know. when we get a figure and say it's gonna be this much money
Okay, if he
to do that.
contacted Oliveri 2
Yeah.
weeks ago, what's the next step? Has Oliveri come and looked at the building again?
Oliveri is gonna do specs on, yes, Oliveri looked at, well, obviously, I
They,
know
they,
Oliveri.
he did his
Right.
preliminary
Right.
walkthrough over a
Right.
month ago. You
Oliveri's
just said
got-
Joe called 2 weeks ago. What's
Right.
the next step?
The next step is for Oliveri to look at the walls a little more closely and then pull out a couple more contractors and figure out what the deal is here.
I'm thinking structural engineer is necessary. Structural engineer needs to
Well,
look
it's
at
going
that.
to need, for the,
Not just a contract.
Superintendent Sperry will give the board a report on that.
Okay. But do we have an idea of timing of when Oliveri is gonna come and do all this, or provide Joe with the report?
What's the harm of getting an RFQ in the meantime to
Right.
possibly put up a pole barn
Yes,
in land that we already own?
I totally agree with Jerry on
I
that.
said that for, I don't know,
Yeah.
how long listens to me.
Because it
But-
could, it could take Oliveri another month to get us that information. Let's start working on the RFQ, because it's gonna take some time to get
That
that
doesn't necessarily
together.
mean we're going to go through with it, but
No.
let's get
Yeah,
the
okay.
information.
Yeah.
Find out what it costs.
We cannot delay this anymore. We've been talking about this for over a year. Situation's not getting any better, it's getting worse, and I, for one, am not comfortable having our public works employees going in and out of that building in the dangerous condition that it's in.
I totally agree with you, because of this simple fact, we are aware of 2 walls now. We had somebody come in there, and God forbid something was to happen, and we're aware of it.
Right.
I mean, I'd like to see us, if all possible, not use that section of the public works unless we absolutely have to. And I don't even want to say that. I'd like to say, let's not use it, period.
well, I asked Oliveri if it's safe to be occupable or whatever that is. And he said
Well, he
yes.
just put in a report that it's a hazard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I asked him when he was here, and I said, is it okay for people to work in there? And he said, yes. It's not,
Okay,
you
but
know,
that's
I'm not,
different than what he put in writing now.
I'm not saying that we should delay it. I've been pushing to get this going too. But the bottom line is, if you want to do an
Well,
RFP,
public works into our section,
if you want to do an RFP, that's
The people
going to,
at least.
then,
for now. I mean, that help, that at least gets them out of there.
he said it's okay to have people in there, but if
Not
law,
for long, not for.
not for a long term. But the bottom line is, you know, there's not just a walk in the park, as trustee Crowley knows, just to do an RFP for a public, RFQ for a public works building. You actually have to do a lot of research and it's.
So let's start doing that now, so that we've got the ball
Well,
rolling.
okay, then what, you know what? Why don't we ask Superintendent Sperry if that's okay? Because he's stretched a million different ways right now and everything possible. And now I'm gonna throw something else at him. So if
John,
he's,
John, you think Superintendent Sperry doesn't think this is urgent enough that he could make time to do that?
I think he's got a lot on his plate. And if.
Then why don't we volunteer to help?
Whoa. I'm a trustee that's liaison. Why don't we ask him, the expert, to figure out what he wants to do with his own department?
That's a great
He
idea.
is running that department. What does he want to do? If he thinks an RFQ for a different building on the property we already have is a good idea, then I'm all for it.
So
But
being the liaison, you're gonna take care of that for us?
yes,
Thank you.
Okay.
and it's a good point from trustee Kate. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I
Just
didn't
be-
have a point.
But actually Sandy is the first one that really jumped on this.
Okay.
I'll share my thunder with you.
Squeeze the ball. So, and just to be clear, you mentioned
Can I
about
have
the police
that?
station, the
Thank you.
professionals that are being
only
hired
for the chief.
will determine if and where a new police station will fit. So, Attorney Valdez.
Nothing except the update on the sergeant lieutenant contract. which
And
we'll
the
do
master
in-
poll.
Oh, I'm sorry, master poll agreement, it's right here.
That's why we put it on the screen.
The master poll agreement, again, to refresh the board's memory, the Small Cellular Facilities Act requires that the village respond to applicants who want to put refrigerator size.
They're not refrigerators.
Yes, they are.
On poles. Small refrigerator, yeah. And the village must respond within, I believe it's 90 days, but currently, right now, we've passed the ordinance maximizing the authority of the village in terms of the logistics, in terms of a compensation for that. What we're missing is a master pole attachment agreement, which would be the contract between the cellular provider and the village for which they would begin that process. So we have a individual, a vendor, excuse me, I should say, a company who wants to put a small cellular unit up. So we tell them we would respond to their intent and provide them their ability to apply once we had an application. And so.
So is this document here our village master document that we require all vendors to execute
Yes,
with no revision?
And who's gonna fill in all the blanks?
correct.
Yeah.
Well, this is just to give, the blanks are going to be filled in by the building superintendent and I believe the Public Works, actually Public Works. Superintendent is going to review this. The building superintendent is also going to review this. All this is here is to inform the board the terms that will be in that agreement. The blanks and lines and the rest, posting it online, that'll come later. But right now, because this is such a significant issue in terms of what the board may be inquired about, if someone sees a bunch of refrigerators, small refrigerators, going up on poles all over the village, you may hear about it. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to see what terms those facilities will be governed by.
So in the second to the last whereas on page 1, it says licensor and licensee acknowledge that they will enter into a license supplement, a copy of which is attached here too as Exhibit A. Is that their application or is, and do we draft that application? Is there
Yes.
a blank application document that they have to fill out with all their information and what they're doing, where they're going, how many refrigerators they're hanging in?
Application is already done. The village already has the application. We don't have.
So that's what this license supplement is, the application?
This is the terms of the agreement between the applicant and the village.
And then this will be the exact same document that every single licensee will execute?
Once the 200 blanks are filled in.
Yeah, okay. Well then, I guess we're not going to vote on this today then, right? Do we have to wait for the blanks to be filled in?
Well, it's more of an approval, unless you have any objections. This, like I said, the board has already implemented the ordinance. We already have an application. This is just the contract, which the board has the authority to approve or not approve.
Well, I guess I would be more comfortable if all the blanks were filled in. Plus, like in paragraph O on page 5, it says licensee shall comply with, and then it says insert specific design standards for decorative utility pole or stealth concealment or aesthetic requirements. Where are we getting these specific design standards from? Who's got those?
That's going to come from the the Public Works Director and the Building Superintendent to review with regard to that particular requirements, our code with regard to that. So when an AT&T is going to be the first one, when they come in, these are things that we are going to have put into the contract. This is just boilerplate to give you an idea of what the terms are going to be.
Okay, well, I mean, asking Joe and Nick to come up with design standards, specific design standards, I mean, is that typical and usual?
Well, who else is?
Who else is going to,
Oh.
well, we could, I don't know who else.
I mean, that's fine, but, I don't know.
Can we R&D it from another town? I
I don't know if any other
think it-
towns have this.
But
Oh, yeah,
that's
everybody has to
for,
have
but if you read it, it says, the following design or concealment measures in a historic district or
Correct.
historic landmark.
No, that's for something totally different. I'm talking about O above that.
What,
There's two totally separate.
What page
So
are you on,
Karen, we're on page 5.
Right.
Paragraph O and paragraph P are two totally and separate distinct things.
Oh, I see.
Because you would
Okay.
have,
Yeah,
you would have
different.
specific design
Design, yeah.
standards for your normal, regular,
The
typical
poles,
business
right, right.
district. If we had a historical district, I mean, would we consider our TOD area?
No, that's not historical.
Okay, well then I guess P would not really apply to the village.
No.
So color of boxes or some such thing, or that what you'd be thinking of?
Oh, boy, we'll be here another 2 hours.
Carl doesn't get to pick the colors, though. Sorry.
I've already straightened out the department heads, and it will be blue and white.
Actually,
And
I
red?
believe when we had our meeting with AT&T, their boxes are black.
Okay.
So can we tell, so then, if that's the case, then that would be one design standard that Joe and Nick would specify, is that anybody coming in, all of the boxes have to be black.
What they told us is they would match the pole that's going on. So if
Oh, or
it's
silver. Okay, oh,
silver,
that's right.
Black is black.
That's right, okay.
So you get this to Superintendent Weinert and Superintendent Sperry, is that?
Yes,
Okay.
Superintendent Weinert already has it, and I can get it to Superintendent Sperry.
Thanks.
Okay.
And that's it?
That's all I have.
I have nothing tonight, Clerk Mosco.
Just a few updates to the board. I'm sure to see the numerous sets of meeting minutes this week of forwarded. Maria still has more. Trustee Kreis, thank you for your corrections.
Oh, I'm still trying to read them all.
Well, there may be a few more before the next week.
I read the first two from week, what are these that are attached?
There'll
Are
be
they-
at least 12 sets. I
Oh,
don't know
boy.
if they're all in here. They've come in your email, but I don't think they're on.
Oh, there's a lot of them.
It was the two from April that I missed.
I'm
Okay.
caught up. We are caught up.
Are they all in here?
Oh,
Oh, yeah, they are all in here. So there may be a few more before next week, so thank you for your review of those. I did receive a request for early block party request for Saturday, July 27th on the 143rd block of Keystone from 143rd to 144th from 1 PM to 10:30 PM. They have requested the visits from the police department and the fire department, and they've included times, and it appears to be signed by at least 3 residents on the block. So if no one has any objections, we will send them approval.
Good.
That is all I have tonight.
And you'll
Just
send
the
that to the
season.
police department so they can put it on their schedule?
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn to closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employee of the public body, and to discuss collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are going to close session. There will be no further action
Can I close this now?
following closed session.
Ooh. Getting violent out here. Okay.
I'm so I can forward it to them. I have one printed, but it said for May 1st.